At 60 years old, while most people were thinking about retirement, she walked into a college classroom for the very first time in decades. People laughed at her. Some told her she was too old. But 4 years later, she stood on stage beside her daughter, both wearing graduation caps and gowns. She stood outside the college building holding her books tightly against her chest while students half her age walked past her laughing, talking about weekend parties and future plans, and for a moment, she almost turned around and went home because at 60 years old, she felt invisible and completely out of place. Her name was Margaret, and for most of her life, she had been known only as someone's wife, someone's mother, someone who sacrificed her own dreams so others could chase theirs. 40 years earlier, she had once dreamed of becoming a teacher. She loved books more than anything in the world. As a young girl, she would sit near the window during rainy afternoons reading stories about brave women who changed their lives through education and courage. She believed one day she would become one of them. But life moved differently. At 19, she fell in love. At 20, she got married. And by 22, she was holding her first baby in her arms while quietly placing her college dreams somewhere deep inside her heart. Years passed quickly. Her husband worked long hours while she stayed home raising children, cooking meals, cleaning the house, and trying to make every dollar stretch just enough for the family to survive. There were nights when she cried silently after everyone went to sleep because deep inside, she felt like a part of her had disappeared. But every morning she smiled again because mothers learn how to hide pain better than anyone else. She gave everything to her children. When her son needed school supplies, she skipped buying herself a winter coat. When her daughter wanted dance classes, she secretly sold her wedding jewelry to pay for them. When bills became too heavy, she started cleaning houses during the day while still taking care of her family at night. No one ever saw how exhausted she truly was. No one noticed the quiet loneliness growing inside her. Then one evening, her daughter Emily came home from college carrying books and talking excitedly about. And somehow Daniel traded his family for that fantasy. 3 days later, he left.
No screaming. No dramatic goodbye.
Just 2 suitcases rolling quietly across the wooden floor while Lily cried near the staircase, begging her father not to go. Daniel kissed his daughter quickly before walking out the door without turning around. And just like that, the man Emily loved for almost 2 decades disappeared into another life. The weeks after the divorce felt like drowning slowly. Bills arrived faster than Emily could pay them. Daniel stopped answering most calls. Child support payments came late or sometimes not at all. Meanwhile, social media became torture. Photos of Daniel and Sophia appeared everywhere. Luxury vacations, beach resorts, champagne dinners, designer clothes, perfect smiles. Emily stopped opening those apps after Lily accidentally saw one photo and cried herself to sleep, asking why Daddy loved another woman more than them. That question shattered Emily in ways she could never explain. At 39, she suddenly found herself alone, frightened, and completely lost. She had spent most of her adult life supporting Daniel's dreams while raising Lily and working small part-time jobs whenever money became tight. Now she had no real career, no savings, and no idea how to rebuild herself from the ruins of a life she thought would last forever. Every night after Lily fell asleep, Emily sat alone beside the kitchen window, staring into darkness, wondering how someone who once promised forever could become a stranger so easily. But pain changes people quietly. At first it destroys them. Then, eventually, if they survive long enough, it transforms them. One afternoon, Emily attended a school meeting where another mother accidentally humiliated her in front of several parents. "I heard your husband left you for someone younger," she whispered carelessly. That must be devastating. Emily forced a weak smile, while shame burned through her entire body. But before she could quit, Emily walked into the room and noticed the tears in her mother's eyes. Without saying anything, Emily sat beside her and opened the textbook. They studied together until sunrise, page by page, line by line, like mother and daughter fighting the world side by side. Slowly things began to change. Margaret started understanding her classes better. Her confidence grew. Professors noticed her dedication. Younger students began asking her for advice because, unlike everyone else in the classroom, Margaret understood life. She knew pain. She knew sacrifice. She knew resilience. One afternoon during a class discussion, a young student complained about stress because she had failed a test. Margaret listened quietly before softly saying, "Failure is not waking up after losing one test. Failure is spending your whole life believing you are not worthy of another chance." The room fell silent. Even the professor looked emotional. From that moment, people saw her differently. Not as an old woman trying to fit in, but as someone courageous enough to begin again. Years passed. The journey was not easy. Her husband became sick during her second year, and Margaret balanced hospital visits, assignments, cooking, and part-time work all at once. There were days she slept only 2 hours. Days when her body ached so badly she could barely walk across campus. But she refused to quit. Because after sacrificing her entire life for others, she finally understood something powerful. It was not selfish to chase her own dream. It was necessary. Then came the hardest moment of all. During her final year, her husband passed away quietly one winter morning. The grief shattered her. For weeks, she stopped attending classes. She stayed inside her room, holding old photographs, wondering if continuing school even mattered anymore. One evening, Emily found her sitting alone in darkness. "Mom, he was proud of you." Margaret looked away silently. Emily continued, speaking through tears. "Dad told me before he died that watching you go back to school inspired him more than anything else. He said you finally looked alive again." Margaret broke down, crying harder than she had in years. Because deep inside, she realized something heartbreaking. She had spent decades surviving for everyone else without truly living for herself. And now, for the first time, she wanted to keep living, not just existing.
Living.
So she returned to class, stronger than before. Students clapped when she walked back into the room. Professors hugged her. And slowly, she finished the final semester, one assignment at a time. Then graduation day arrived. Margaret stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her cap and gown while tears filled her eyes. At 64 years old, she barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Not because she looked younger, but because she finally looked proud. Outside the ceremony, families filled the stadium cheering, holding flowers and cameras. Margaret walked beside Emily through the crowd. Mother and daughter, wearing matching graduation gowns. 2 generations connected by one dream. As their names were called, they stepped onto the stage together. The audience erupted with applause. Some people stood crying. Even professors wiped tears from their faces. Because everyone understood they were witnessing something bigger than graduation. They were witnessing courage. They were witnessing redemption. They were witnessing proof that dreams do not disappear with age. After the ceremony, Emily hugged her mother tightly and whispered, "You did it, Mom." Margaret smiled through tears.
"No, sweetheart. We did it."
That photograph of them embracing on graduation day later spread across social media, inspiring millions of people around the world. Women who had given up on themselves began returning to school. Mothers who believed life had passed them by started chasing forgotten dreams again. Older men applied for new careers. Retired workers opened businesses. People everywhere saw themselves in Margaret. Not because she was extraordinary, but because she was ordinary. And ordinary people overcoming impossible odds is what inspires the world the most. Months later, Margaret stood inside her very own classroom for the first time as a teacher. She looked at the students sitting before her and smiled softly. Some were young. Some were older. Some looked uncertain and afraid, exactly like she once had. She walked slowly to the center of the room and spoke gently. "It is never too late to become the person you were always meant to be." The room became completely silent, because every word came not from a textbook, but from a life filled with sacrifice, pain, hope, and courage. And in that moment, Margaret realized something beautiful. Her dream had never truly disappeared. It had simply waited patiently for her to believe she deserved it. Sometimes life delays dreams not to destroy them, but to prepare us for the moment we are finally strong enough to live them. And somewhere beyond fear, beyond age, beyond regret, there is another version of ourselves waiting quietly for the chance to begin again.